Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. We have been updating you guys extensively, mapping out the channels of Bitcoin, analyzing where we need to go inside of this consolidation to see a further continuation. I still think that we're going to end up seeing another leg up inside of this cycle before this short-term trend is done with Bitcoin. The difference is we may see a short-term correction happen before we get there. For today's video, I'm going to be breaking it down, sharing with you guys exactly what the charts are saying so that we know exactly how to be positioned to be prepared regardless of what the direction of the market takes. There's about to be a lot of volatility stepping in, still lots of room for upside potential. We're going to break it down so that we can be best positioned moving forward from here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and we are going to be sticking to the exact same sort of analysis we've been having because it really is just followed along perfectly. And this is one of the most valuable parts about trading ranges when Bitcoin starts ranging, is you don't necessarily even have to know so much about the range. All you have to find is the resistance, and then whenever you start to find support, that's going to be your range low. And so through finding these ranges, it gives us a strategic advantage to be able to trade the market and gives us an idea of when the market could potentially shift. Now we knew that when we were rallying back up at this resistance, we were still technically below resistance. So we needed to move outside of this to get continuation to the bullish side. Now, as you guys can tell, we've continued to sell off. We haven't been able to make any sort of meaningful breakout, lower lows and lower highs. And as you guys can see today, we currently are breaking below the mid-range. So I do think that this is going to end up coming back down to retest the same level as our main support that we've had since we began this consolidation. But the difference is the more I look at Bitcoin, the more I kind of feel like we may be looking at Bitcoin sweeping these lows, potentially making a move just under this support and kind of finishing out this ABC correction. Because when I zoom out, this is what it looks like we might end up doing. And it might only be a small swipe just below this support, but regardless, I do think that the market could end up pulling back in this sort of a way. When we're looking at the bigger time frames, we're just inside of this consolidation, but I still think that we've got a little bit more upside to come, right? Once we do get a move outside of this, even if it's in the short term below our support, I still think that this is going to result into further continuation to the bullish side. We're still looking at our main target being 48,500 there, and I won't be the least bit surprised to see Bitcoin extend all the way up to about 52,000 as well. We're looking at a very impulsive market right now. Bitcoin spent the last 200 days accumulating here, so to see this sort of markup is to be expected, considering the more time it takes to accumulate, the bigger that the move is going to be in the price. So seeing Bitcoin accumulating in this way is a very encouraging sign. Regardless, even if we end up swiping these lows, I just think it'll be an opportunity for those to get back into new positions. Now, if we're looking over here at the total market cap, we're going to be looking at an important range that, in my opinion, we could see a little bit of a deeper pullback here, but I don't think that it's going to be any sort of difference. We're still going to be looking for further continuation. We've had an absolutely massive move off of these lows, and we are getting to the point where we're getting a little bit of weakness forming inside of our momentum indicators. Now, the RSI is going to stay overbought or oversold for long periods of time. That's why it's not the greatest indicator to use by itself. Generally, what you guys want is multiple different converging points of data to more or less strengthen that signal given in the charts. So as we're seeing this big move out of this breakout, we haven't really seen any sort of significant pullback. These were all just very short-term consolidations, and so we haven't had any sort of meaningful pullback this entire way up. If we're looking at the OBV looks strong. This has continued to impulse. This has continued to maintain higher highs and higher lows. We don't have any sort of bearish divergence forming in here. The bearish divergence is all coming in on the RSI. And so we have three different examples of this where more or less ever since right here. And this is why I say that the RSI is not the best indicator to use by itself. Considering Bitcoin's made three higher highs, the price has taken off and made this significant increase in value. This is the total market cap, but same thing. And yet the RSI has given three different bearish divergence signals. So we got to remember that the more of these signals you get, the more intensity of the signal we're going to be provided in the RSI. But if you start seeing bearish divergence on the RSI, one of the things you have to understand is they can actually stay that way for a period of time, both overbought or oversold. So looking at the total market cap, because we don't have any sort of strong signal playing out in the OBV, that's something that tells me that at least in the short term, the market's not quite as weak. And once we flash sort of a bearish signal on the OBV, I do believe that that gives the signal inside of the RSI a lot more strength. But when we come out to the weekly time frame, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, right? Because on the OBV, we do actually have some bearish divergence forming. we made this high, and then we made a higher high right here with this rejection candle. So we do technically have some bearish divergence on the OBV, and we do technically have some, inside of this RSI. The RSI doesn't look quite as clear as what the OBV shows, but the OBV is getting a little bearish divergence right after retesting this resistance inside of this chart. So I do think that that's an important thing to be factoring into all of this. If the weekly time frame is giving us a bearish divergence on the OBV, and then we're getting a pretty strong bearish divergence, multiple different points on side of this RSI, I do think that we could be in for a little bit of a pullback here. And what would that look like? Well, it might look something like this. We might end up coming back down to kind of retest the same level where we just kind of broke from, because we're consolidating below this level at 1.4 billion before we made this breakout. So to see us kind of correct back down, retest that level as a support and resistance flip, this would just end up looking like an A, B, and a C. The only difference is wave A, or wave B, actually made a new high, whereas in Bitcoin, it didn't. It made a low. So we are looking at a little bit of a difference. Altcoins do show a little more strength. Looking at the altcoin total market cap, this is more along the lines of what I'm going to be expecting for some type of a correction. So far, all we've been doing is just holding this ascending support. We've been grinding off of this ever since we started breaking out, but don't be surprised if we ended up making some type of a pullback where we did actually break below this. Any sort of a pullback here, in my opinion, would just be a retest of these prior highs that we just broke from, and I don't think it's going to be any sort of sketchy thing by any means. If you get the opportunity to buy a retest of these prior highs, I would jump into that, considering this is the altcoin total market cap. They're lagging a little bit, but they're also holding pretty good support. Bitcoin has kind of pulled back a little bit more. We're seeing a little bit more strength inside of the altcoins. That's why these markets are actually holding better support than what Bitcoin is showing. But I still think that if Bitcoin's going to see a pullback and we do swipe for a lower low, even if it's a small one, we'll probably end up seeing the markets doing something like this. So an opportunity to get in for anybody that hasn't been buying down in here. I do think that the market is looking a little bit more weak, though, than it's looking bullish. The DeFi total market cap has made this big move. It's following along with the altcoins, just kind of riding this ascending support. Where would we expect to see a correction in here? Well, right off the bat, we're going to expect to see a correction to the trend line. That's the most obvious area of support. We're either going to hold this, or we'll probably do something like this and make a deeper ABC type correction where we do the same thing as the altcoin total market cap and come back down and retest this high. Both of these are going to follow the same thing. They're either going to fall back down and only retest this main trend line before going up, or they're going to kind of retest it and then do a bull trap before they end up coming back down for one more lower low. I don't really care either way, because both of these are just going to be retesting a major breakout point. So both directions show that we're about to see bullish continuation. At that point, it's apples to oranges. Like, are you going to care that much about a 10 or a 15% drop? I mean, you should if you're in a lot of leverage, I guess, because the potential of you being over leveraged and liquidated is always there. But for anybody that's just chilling right now in spot positions, just looking to hold stake, do whatever, none of this should be even sketchy to you. It's just a small pullback that, realistically, if you've got cash on the sidelines, you could leverage to go back into the market and buy a little bit more crypto. Now, the next chart we need to be looking at today is a very, very important one, and this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. If we're going to expect to see altcoins perform well, we need to see this chart go down. And I've been updating you guys a lot, talking about how really in 2017, the reason why that cycle was so powerful, the reason why there was so much altcoin gains, we saw so many, I'm not even exaggerating, you could have literally bought any altcoin in the top 100 for the most part, and I can almost guarantee you 90% of those would have given you a 100x and done even more than that. It was that easy to make money in 2017, and even though we made a lot of money inside of our last cycle, it wasn't nearly the same significance. And for me, I was in the early cycle of 2016, so I had the opportunity of writing out the entirety of that bull run to see how it all unfolded. And I can tell you guys right now, our last bull run was absolutely abysmal in comparison. But the cool thing about 2017 and the reason it was so powerful was because we were in bearish price discovery against altcoins, right? Bitcoin dominance was losing value against altcoins. Altcoins were gaining market share over Bitcoin. And that's really why we saw so much profit flowing back into the altcoins. At the time, Bitcoin was really the only thing that did anything. Then what happened? Bitcoin dominance went into bearish price discovery and all of the altcoins kind of went crazy. That's when they outperformed their Bitcoin ratios. True alt season is when altcoins are outperforming outperforming Bitcoin. The last cycle, Bitcoin outperformed altcoins. And we can tell that because we never made a lower low past what we saw in 2018. The peak low of 2017, I mean, the very highest point of ETH, the very highest point of that cycle for the altcoins, we never made a lower low past that, even at the peak point of our last bull market. As all of that DeFi profit was taken off, as all of that money was rolling into crypto last cycle, all of this was technically a lower high, right? So we've maintained this bearish consolidation ever since the beginning of 2018. And we've been inside of this consolidation, and you could look at it more as a descending triangle type thing. Our long-term descending resistance is right here. And as you guys can tell, we most recently finally tagged that. Now, I don't know if this is truly going to be the top, and I'm not trying to sit here and call the exact top, but I expected that we would reject right here at this level, and we're right here at this level. So what I see happening here, this is either a short-term ABC correction before we make like one more high like this. You know, this could technically peak up above and do some type of bear trap and then, you know, ultimately drop. But what we want to see is for this to reverse at this descending resistance. I do believe that there's going to be more profit inside of the altcoins this cycle. And the reason why there's going to be so much more profit is because this will be the first time that Bitcoin dominance will be inside of a brand new all-time low, more bearish price discovery right here, since 2017. And that's what we're looking at. Our entire last few years, the last 4, 5, 6 years, has been us just more or less maintaining higher highs or a lower high inside of this bearish consolidation all throughout this. This is a big descending triangle where you have a horizontal support and you have a descending resistance. The second that this breaks down from this level right here, basically being 40 to 35% dominance, we're going to be looking at a brand new all-time low and altcoins outperforming their Bitcoin ratios and actually going into price discovery in that cycle. I think that this is the retail cycle. And I think that the retail cycle is here because the institutions need exit liquidity when they take profits on all of their early investments. The institutions have been here ever since CME futures opened at the beginning of that 2018 bear market. They were the reason why the bear market started. It's not coincidence that the exact day that futures opened was the exact cycle top of Bitcoin. It's the way institutions are able to control and manipulate markets. At the end of the day, they just had enough money to keep shorting the market and realize all of that profit all the way through. And so all they did was accumulate that whole bear cycle. They had that short position opened as everybody was capitulating, all the people that were caught up in the hype, the institutions were accumulating. And then we started to see new institutions jump on scene, new investment corporations, new banks. We saw Grayscale start to really take off and accumulate Bitcoin. And I do believe that this is only the very beginning of what we're about to see long term. All of these institutions are more or less already here. Once the ETF rolls through, that's the last hurdle to really send all of the liquidity that we need for institutional adoption. And that's what tells me if there's going to be institutional adoption taking place in this cycle, then they need exit liquidity to take profits in. And it only makes sense that they're going to be shilling the ever living crap out of this to the retail investors. So if we're looking at the same cycle lining up, I don't find it coincidental that all of this is perfectly coinciding with each other, showing that we're about to see this new all-time low in Bitcoin dominance, seeing the ETF, seeing all of the institutions, knowing that they always have to have exit liquidity to take profits. It just seems like the perfect storm here. So I wanted to break things down, explain what the charts are telling me. We might see a little correction in the short term, but I don't think it's really going to matter. I still think we're going to end up making another high very soon. Momentum indicators look a little exhausted, which a short-term correction would reset those, and then that could set us in for the next leg up. So if you guys did find value in this, do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys found value in this, if you guys want to end up seeing how I invest in my portfolio long-term, over the course of the last few cycles, we've nailed many of the very best performing altcoins each and every bull run, and I do think that we're about to do the exact same thing all over again. I know more of this cycle than I ever did in the last ones. 8 years in crypto now, and we've already had a lot of really good successes, called Solana, called Metis, called a number of different altcoins, early to the airdrops for Arbitrum, and this is only the beginning. So if you guys do want to see how I'm positioned long term, and you guys want to get in early before we have this absolutely massive bull market for the altcoins, now is the very best time you could possibly do that, because it's only going to get more overvalued from here. So if you want to check it out, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. From my website, you're going to be able to get access to my private Discord, but you got to sign up through my website to get it. All of that is provided inside of the links of my description in this video. So check it out. Thank you guys so much for the support. From the bottom of my heart, you guys, I love you. I appreciate everybody that watches the channel, anybody that likes, comments. A lot of you guys have either found massive success or you're right at the verge of doing so. And I think that with this cycle being the biggest one that we're going to see, now is the opportunity to go all in with everything that we possibly can afford to lose, do everything we can to maximize the fullest potential of this cycle. And, my ultimate goal is to see you guys make a lot of financial wealth and prosperity, the same thing I've been able to do for myself, the same thing I've seen my family do, and the same thing I've seen so many of you guys do in the side of the market. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you guys. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.